Walters is open during the week from 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. and open until 3 a.m. on the weekends, making Walters a great spot to watch the Olympics this month in Paris.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Irvin's 1-1. Swinging a looping line drive, base hit right field. Adames headed home. The ball gets by Thomas and rolls toward the warning track. Frelick rounding third. He'll score. Thomas picks it up, throws it back in, and ending up at third is Ortiz. Oh my. 4-1 Milwaukee. RBI single. The ball missed in right field, right under the glove of Thomas. Shades of Trent Grisham, former Brewer. Here's the pitch to Adames, and a line drive right field. Another base hit for Adames. Played by Thomas on a bounce. Heading home to score is Contreras. Over to third is Yelich. The throw in is cut off by Abrams. Adames is 3 for 3. And Milwaukee tacks another on. They lead 7-2.
And welcome to Nats Chat for Monday, July 15th, 2024. It is day one of MLB's 2024 All-Star break. It is the day of MLB's 2024 Home Run Derby. It is the day before MLB's 2024 All-Star Game, and it is the day after the Nationals concluded their pre-All-Star break portion of the season. A 9-3 loss at the National League Central, leading Milwaukee Brewers on Sunday afternoon, denying the Nats a 3-game sweep. But the Nats did win the first 2 games of the series. The Nats ultimately in a grueling stretch of 17 consecutive days without an off day going into the All-Star break went 6-11. Coming up later in the show, Tim Shovers on what the Nats did with their number 10 overall pick in the 2024 MLB draft, which got going on Sunday night. But Mark, here we are at the All-Star break. The Nats for this regular season are 44-53, on pace for a 74-win season. This off a 71-win 2023 regular season. As you and I are taping this, the Nats are likely en route back to the Washington, D.C. area. Mike Rizzo, Davey Martinez, perhaps having a conversation. Who knows? Maybe they stay away from each other, maybe not. But do you think that Mike and Davey overall are pleased with the pre-All-Star break portion of the season that the Nats just authored?
You know, I think when they take a step back and consider the bigger picture and the long-term plan here, I think they are pleased with all the positive developments in this first half, especially from the pitching staff, but also, C.J. Abrams, James Wood's arrival, Jacob Young, guys who they were hoping to perform well, and some guys that maybe weren't even expected to do this and have done that. So I do think they like that part of it. But I know the competitors they are also, especially Davey Martinez. And a couple weeks ago, we're talking about them being right on the fringes of the wild card race. And now they go into the All-Star break and they're significantly down in the standings. And as we saw on Saturday, basically conceding in some ways that they are not going for it this year by trading Hunter Harvey. I think the realists in both of them knew that would probably happen. But I think in Davey Martinez's case especially, and I know for sure the guys in the clubhouse, there was a period there a few weeks ago that they thought, hey, we could keep this up. We could change the narrative and actually try to make something happen this year and not worry so much about what it means next year and beyond. So I do think it's a positive first half. I don't think these last couple of weeks have changed the outlook for 2025 and beyond. But I think it's just that twinge of disappointment that maybe they could have kept this thing going a little bit longer and gone into the break still feeling like they were in the thick of a race this year.
Well, the Nats do have the third worst record in the National League. That does stand out. But as we have discussed, the National League wildcard race is a jumbled mess of mediocrity. So if the Nats somehow got hot, even for like a 2-week stretch post the All-Star break, they are right back in the thick of the wild card race, and they still are, technically speaking. I mean, you look at the standings in the mix for that third wild card spot in the standings. But yeah, the trade of Hunter Harvey certainly seemed to signify that the Nats understand where they are, and I do think that that is the prudent course of action, to be sellers and to be thinking bigger picture as opposed to trying to get that third wild card spot this season. So if I asked you, who is the biggest bright spot for the Nats in the pre-All-Star break portion of this season, pretty good chance to say Jake Irvin. And if he's not number one, he's certainly top 2 or top 3. Well, unfortunately, Jake Irvin on Sunday afternoon was bad for a second consecutive start. He does not go into the All-Star break having pitched at his best, and you certainly hope that what we saw over his final 2 starts in the pre-All-Star break portion of the season were not a sign of what is to come. But Irvin, in this 9-3 loss at the Brewers on Sunday afternoon, 7 runs, 6 earned in 4 innings. He gave up 9 hits, which were 2 home runs, 2 doubles, and 5 singles. He issued 3 walks and a wild pitch. He recorded 3 strikeouts. Over his 4 innings, threw 86 pitches, 54 strikes versus 32 balls. Now, Irvin was harmed by a fielding error by right fielder Lane Thomas in a Brewers 3-run third, but Irvin did not pitch well, and this was a second consecutive bad start for Irvin. His last outing came in the Nats 7-5 loss at the New York Mets this past Tuesday night, July 9th. Irvin, in that game, 6 runs in 6 innings. He had been a model of consistency, and these last 2 outings aren't just bad, they're actually quite bad. I mean, you look at those lines, 6 runs in 6 innings, 7 runs, 6 earned in 4 innings. What has stood out to you with Jake Irvin over these last 2 starts?
Mechanics, not quite the same. Command, certainly not the same. This was the guy who was throwing strikes over and over and efficiently getting outs and pitching deeper into games, and that's not who he was in these last 2 starts. So there's that. I think they may take a look at some of those mechanics, some video over the All-Star break and say, okay, what was going on? Were you flying open? Is that leading to this or that? I think you always worry about, with him, with all these young pitchers who have done so much in the first half, are they getting worn down at all? It would be understandable if that was the case. You hope that an All-Star break can be good for them, allow them to reset some, but this is going to be a huge storyline in the second half of the year. Can they sustain what they did in the first half, keep it going? And, I give Jake credit because his attitude about this was he's not going to go home for the break and dwell on these 2 starts. He's going to look at the big picture and say, hey, I did a lot of really good things. This was, in so many ways, a breakthrough first half for me. But at the same time, it's a little dose of reality. And 10 days ago, we're talking about this guy should be an all-star. How could he not be an all-star? And I'm not saying that was in his mind, but I'm sure he heard the talk and he knew what people were saying about him. And this is a little bit of a reminder, as he admitted, that there's still work to be done. And so I think that's the right mindset for him. And I'll be really interested to see how he comes out of the break, those first few starts. Does he get it back on track, or does this carry over at all? And we've seen it before. You can have a great first half, and at the end of the season, if your ERA starts with a 4 or above, you forget everything that happened from April to June. The truly good big league pitchers know how to keep this going all year long, and in most cases finish better than they started. And I think that's now the challenge for him and a bunch of other guys on this staff.
It was such a long pre-All-Star break portion of the season. I mean, we talk about the dog days of the season. You could argue we actually entered the dog days of the season before the All-Star break, which is crazy when you think about that. The concern clearly would be this, right? So we in recent years have seen Nats starting pitchers who get off to good starts to seasons and then unravel. It happened with Eric Fedde a few years ago, happened with Trevor Williams last season. But we also have seen guys start off well, struggle, and then get back on track. We saw that with Josiah Gray last season. That was one of the really nice things about last Nats season. Gray really got sidetracked. Like, he was in a bad way for a while, but he ended up ending his season in a strong way. Now, his unraveling came later in the season, but what hopefully you see with Jake Irvin is, even if he does struggle, and I guess him struggling was probably inevitable. Like, he wasn't going to continue to be as good as he had been, but can he right himself? Can he get back on track the way, say, that Gray did last season? That's huge, because you're right. If post-All-Star break Jake Irvin is a distant pitcher as compared to pre-All-Star break Jake Irvin, that's a big-time disappointment. This guy has been maybe the single biggest bright spot for the Nats this season. You would hate to see that these last 2 starts are indicative of what's to come for him the rest of this season.
Right. So I mean, think of it also in these terms. He's made 20 starts now. That's almost 2/3 of a season already. And he's up to 116 pitches. Last year, 121 innings in the big leagues and 22 in the minors. So 143 was his total for the season. He's already at 116. So this really isn't the halfway point of the season for him, like you kind of alluded to there. He's well past that point. So yeah, it is kind of the dog days for him. And there's still a long way to go for him to show that he can make it through a whole season. The sense I get from him, he's really been determined to make this thing count and to continue to get better. And so I think he's going to take the right approach to it. Now, you can have the right mindset all you want, but you still got to go out there and execute and do it. And your body has to hold up through it all. So I do think this is a real significant challenge for him. And it's going to be a tell. We're going to learn a lot about him. And I put Mackenzie Gore in the same category. His first half was more erratic, certainly ended on more of a sour note, I think, than Irvin's. But this is a huge second half, I think, for him. If they want to look at these two as being the workhorses, the leaders of the pitching staff going into next year, I think their performances in the second half are going to go a long way towards determining that. And this is something that all young pitchers have to be able to do. It's a long season. Being a big league starter is very different than being a minor league starter. You've got to learn how to keep it going, how to sustain it through August, all the way through September, as your innings count gets up into the high hundreds and hopefully someday approaching 200.
What an odd series this ended up being for the Nats from a starting pitching standpoint. The Nats win 2 out of 3 games at the Brewers, a good team, despite only really getting one good outing from a starting pitcher. And even that outing featured the guy lasting for just 4 2/3 innings. And yet somehow the Nats won the series. And the 2 starting pitchers who struggled, you could argue, were the Nats' 2 most consistent starting pitchers up until this point of the season in Jake Irvin and Mitchell Parker. Doesn't make much sense, but Jackson Rutledge's outing on Friday night ended up being the Nats' best outing from a starting pitcher in this series. Hey, it's Al Galdi to tell you about the latest offer from Window Nation for listeners of the Nats Chat podcast. Get 2 free windows for every 2 windows that you buy, plus pay nothing with no interest for 2 full years. This is better than any offer that you'll hear about regarding the trade deadline. I promise you. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast. Window Nation is outstanding. Every Window Nation window undergoes a 20-point inspection. Window Nation has a 96% customer satisfaction rating, and 96% of Window Nation windows installed require no follow-up service. Take advantage of this special offer for listeners of the Nats Chat podcast. 2 free windows for every 2 windows that you buy, plus pay nothing with no interest for 2 full years. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com. That's 866-90-NATION or windownation.com. And make sure that you tell Window Nation that Al Galdi sent you.
The best way to learn a language? Immersion. Living where the language is spoken and using it every day. But if that's not in the cards this year, you could still learn a language the second best way. And that's with Babbel. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are handcrafted by over 200 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. Here's a special deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners for a limited time at babbel.com/natschat. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/natschat. That's spelled BABBEL.com/natschat. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. With the finals over, the hoops action doesn't stop on Prize Picks. Women's basketball is still heating up, with stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese looking to make names for themselves, alongside greats like Brianna Stewart and Asia Wilson. You could win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out. I know I'm looking at Clark and Stewart to put up more than their points projections, and I like Reese and Wilson to do the same to their points and rebounds combined projections too. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code BLUEWIRE for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code BLUEWIRE on PrizePicks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Now the pitch swung on and drilled to deep left center field by Willie Adames. Way back, it is gone. Goodbye. A blast into the Brewers bullpen in left center field. Willie Adames with his 15th home run of the year. And the Brewers tack on 2 in the 8th against Amos Willingham. That was a no-doubter.
Well, this also was a very good series for the Nats bullpen. You essentially had one bad outing from one reliever over the course of the 3 games in this series. So 3 Nats relievers on Sunday afternoon combined to allow 2 runs in 4 innings. The bad outing was the last outing. Amos Willingham, who was recalled from AAA-Rochester officially on Sunday afternoon. He, in this game, bottom of the 8th, allowed 2 runs, gave but 2 out first pitch, 2-run homer by Willie Adames to left center field for a 9-3 Brewers lead. But we also in this game had Tanner Rainey tossing a scoreless bottom of the 7th, although he did issue 2 walks and give up a double, but he recorded 2 strikeouts. And the guy who I really want to hone in on here, Eduardo Salazar. Welcome to the Nationals, Eduardo Salazar. 2 scoreless and hitless innings with 4 swinging strikeouts. The Nats on Saturday afternoon announced that they had recalled Salazar from AAA-Rochester. This off the Nats on June 13th, having claimed Salazar off waivers from the Seattle Mariners. But now that Hunter Harvey is gone, there is an opening for a latter portion of the game reliever for the Nats, an 8th inning guy or a 7th inning guy. Could Eduardo Salazar be that guy? Boy, he looked good on Sunday afternoon.
He did. I am not going to go that far and declare after 1 appearance that he's ready to be the setup man. I think there are others on the depth chart that are already ahead of him, for better or worse. Davey Martinez, before the game, talked about how, at least at the moment, it probably won't just be one guy who is the 8th inning guy, maybe more matchup related. You're probably going to see Derek Law getting clean innings, which would maybe be a good strategy. Dylan Floro, as long as he's here, which may only be a couple more weeks. And Robert Garcia, if there are lefties coming up, he might hold on to him and use him later in a game. But I was interested, they all were interested to see what Salazar had. Now, the book on him was good sinker-slider combo, and seeing it in person, even, in just 2 innings, it was like, okay, I see what they were talking about. That's a sinker that hit 97 and a slider that was in the upper 80s and had guys swinging and missing all over the place. He made 9 appearances in Rochester, struck out 15 in 10 2/3 innings, and only 2 walks. So that all of that screamed, okay, there's something here. But this guy's been on a wild ride in the minors and a little bit in the majors. Originally with the Reds, made it up to the big leagues with them, goes to the Dodgers, gets claimed then by the Mariners, never actually pitched in the big leagues for the Mariners, only at AAA, and then the Nats swoop in and claim him off waivers in June. He goes to Rochester for a month, and now he's up here. I don't know what to make of it, but he's 26 years old, seems to have some pretty good stuff if he can harness it, and after seeing what we saw in this one, you want to see more of it. I don't expect that to be in a whole lot of high leverage spots right away, but he certainly has the opportunity, given the situation here, to work his way up into a more prominent spot if they keep calling upon him.
Well, that was impressive what he did on Sunday afternoon. The Nats offense in this loss at the Brewers on Sunday afternoon was not impressive. Now, the Nats offense over the first 2 games of this series was good, so I guess there was bound to be at least one game in which the Nats offense did not come through. But the Nats in this game scored a run in the top of the 2nd, got a run in the top of the 8th, and then that was it in terms of the Nats scoring in this game. We did get another big extra base hit from the Nats lone all-star this season, C.J. Abrams. He is the Nats starting shortstop and number 1 batter, went 1 for 4 with a triple. He and the Nats 1-run 8th, had a leadoff first pitch triple down the right field line. We had another impressive game for Juan Yepez. Boy, what a run he is on. Yepez on Sunday afternoon as the Nats starting first baseman and number 5 batter. 2 for 2 with an RBI single, another single, and a walk. And he had a stolen base. Now Juan Yepez is swiping bags. So Juan Yepez now, since being promoted to the majors on July 5th, 43 plate appearances, batting average at .378, on base percentage .465, slugging percentage .541. He replaced Joey Meneses. Is it possible that we are seeing Juan Yepez do as Joey Meneses did when he was summoned to the majors in 2022? Go on this probably hot streak over the final few months of a season, because this feels 2022 Meneses-esque what Juan Yepez is doing right now.
Well, it's not quite the same storyline because this guy has been in the big leagues before, and he's, 4 years younger than Meneses was when he made his debut. Let's not forget that first week of the Joey Meneses era included a bunch of home runs, and the legend took off from there. I don't know if it's quite that, but what Yepez is doing is giving them consistently quality at-bats. He's got a hit in all 10 games that he's played, and he's had several of these where he's gotten on multiple times during the course of a game. He has been able to drive in runs when they've needed it. He's hit for extra bases, as we've said. He's played with some energy. And this is something that they sorely needed at a position where they were getting so little production out of the guys who had been at first base for them this year. Now, again, I don't know that anybody here is saying Juan Yepez is part of the long-term plan, but somebody's got to play first base and somebody's got to deliver for them to some extent offensively, at least for the rest of this season. And right now, what he's doing has been very important for them. It's helped lengthen their lineup and just inject some life into an offense that, as we know, has looked tepid at times. So the more you can get from anybody, the better. And this guy, deserves to keep being in there and getting a chance to do what he's done.
The Nats offensively in this game, 3 runs, 7 hits, 1 walk, 3 for 6 with runners in scoring position. The Nats in this series actually were quite good with runners in scoring position, but the 7 hits on Sunday afternoon, the Abrams triple, and then 6 singles. I want to focus on James Wood for a moment. So James Wood was the Nats starting left fielder for each of the 3 games in this series. He, on Sunday afternoon, as the Nats number 2 batter, went 1 for 4 with an RBI infield single and 2 strikeouts. In that 1-run 8th, had an opposite field RBI infield single to third base to cut the Nats deficit to 7-3. July 1st was when the Nats selected the contract of Wood from AAA-Rochester. He's since being promoted to the majors. 60 plate appearances, batting average .245, on base percentage .333, slugging percentage .321. Not hitting for much power. In fact, his only 2 extra base hits came in the same game, that 14-6 win over the St. Louis Cardinals at Nationals Park on July 6th. Wood in that game, 3-run homer, 2-run double. Those remain his only extra base hits at the major league level. Now, he is getting some singles. He is drawing walks. If you look at Wood through the StatCast prism, it's really interesting. He's hitting balls supremely hard. The exit velocity is great. The hard hit ball percentage is great. But he's not elevating baseballs at all. And just to read you the data going into Sunday, so Wood's hard hit percentage, 54.8, the major league average, 36.4. So he's hitting balls extremely hard. But from a launch angle perspective, Wood, minus 8.2, the major league average, 12.3. And that seems to be the situation with James Wood right now in a nutshell. He's hitting balls hard, he's scoring up balls, but this exit velocity that he's generating is like going to waste because he's just not elevating baseballs. And so the results have actually been pretty underwhelming, especially lately.
One good sign in this game, he crushed a ball to center field that was caught at the warning track. The first time he's done that in several days, if not even a week. So that was good. I'd like to see that. The other thing is he has been striking out a lot. So when he's hit the ball, yes, it's been hard, but there have been a good number of strikeouts. And I feel like his time here so far, we can break into 2 parts. That opening week or so, when he's hitting the ball really hard, but everything's on the ground. And then the second week, I think he started to swing and miss a lot more or be called out on strikes. And I feel like he's starting to look a little less comfortable at the plate. I'm sure some of this is pitchers having a book on him. I think he's getting a steady dose of off-speed stuff, which can also lead to him reaching for pitches down and out of the zone and leading to those ground balls that you're talking about. I don't think he's getting a lot up in the zone, not a lot of fastballs up there. Certainly, he's a patient hitter in general, but I feel like he's getting behind in the count, that maybe he might do well to actually take a little more aggressive approach. And if he gets a fastball early in the count over the plate, go for it. Don't wait to be behind in the count because we know what a difference that makes. So these are all adjustments that every young hitter has got to figure out as they're up here for any length of time. And knowing what he's done in the minors, knowing the pedigree, everything else, I think it's going to work. And I think the peripherals, as you just described, suggest that there's not a whole lot of reason to be concerned, that this will work itself out over time. The key here for him is going to be don't help the pitcher out by swinging out of the zone, but maybe what the answer to that is be more aggressive in the zone early in the count. I think they're getting him out outside of the zone later in the count. Try to find a fastball early in the count, put a good swing on it, hit it in the air, and I think he's going to be all right. But this is an adjustment period, as we knew there would be for him. And you learn a lot about a guy, about a rookie, to see how they deal with that sort of thing. They're not moving away from him at all. As we discussed, they're going to ride this out. If he struggles, he will still be in there every day. But we're about to find out how he does deal with it when he comes back from the All-Star break.
For sure. And I think you'd rather it be that he's hitting balls hard and not launching them as opposed to the other way around. Like, both things matter when it comes to generating extra base hits. You want to elevate and you want to hit balls hard, but the hitting the balls hard part is really important. And that does suggest that he's scoring them up and he's going to end up getting those extra base hits. But at least for now, they're not coming with the frequency that we know they will come and should come.
Are you looking for tickets to an upcoming event? That's why you should download the Game Time app. Create an account and use code NATSCHAT for $20 off your first purchase. You get cheaper tickets and it helps the podcast a bit. Sounds like a smooth 6-4-3 double play. Again, create an account and redeem the code NATSCHAT for $20 off. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
The 2-2 pitch, ground ball right side, that's through for a base hit. Thomas rounding third, he's coming home. Frelick's throw toward the plate, gets by the cutoff man and is not in time. Thomas scores with a slide, an RBI single for Juan Yepez, a 10-game hitting streak in each of his games with the Nationals. It's now the Brewers 4 and the Nationals 2. Yepez comes through again.
Finally, we have arrived at the Nats All-Star break. You got to think the Nats have been looking forward to this with this grueling stretch that they were in the midst of, and the fatigued bullpen and the starting pitching having fallen off. But, you know, this actually could end up being a very significant All-Star break for the Nats. And I'm not talking about C.J. Abrams playing in the All-Star game. It is supposed to be during this All-Star break that we get definitive word on the status of Josiah Gray. Now, whether we'll actually hear that word, we don't know, but it was to be that he was going to undergo further examination during the All-Star break. You know, it's been a few weeks since we got the last Josiah Gray update. He was on that minor league rehab assignment that was taking a while, and it was then on July 2nd that Davey Martinez in a pregame session with reporters revealed that Gray in his last minor league rehab outing had experienced right elbow discomfort, had been shut down, and was to undergo an MRI exam. Do you think we'll hear about what's up with Gray during the break, or do you think it won't be until Friday when Davey speaks with you guys pregame that we'll learn what's going on with Gray?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to ask, and hopefully others will as well, and we'll get something. I don't know specifically which date he is scheduled to meet with Dr. Keith Meister in Dallas. If he does go there, and especially if he does have a surgery, I think we will hear about that because they will announce that something happened on that day. I suppose no news could be good news in this case if there isn't anything to report and they just wait till Friday to give an update and say, okay, he was examined, everything's all right, we're going to get him started on a throwing program again. But I don't want to get people's hopes up. I think, reading between the lines, I think they are concerned and have reason to believe that there is something more serious going on. You usually aren't going to go see a specialist like this and delay it for a few weeks unless you have an idea what you're talking about here. this may just end up being a confirmation of what they already fear. And you send him there to get looked at. And then if Dr. Meister finds a tear or something else, he goes in and operates. So I'm kind of braced for bad news on this one. You hope it's not the case. You hope he's all right and he can come back and pitch sometime this season. But I think people do need to be prepared to find out whether it is Wednesday, Thursday, or not until Friday that Josiah Gray is going to be out for quite a while, not just this season, but perhaps a good chunk of next season as well.
Well, and that's the thing, that he's undergoing this surgery, if he's going to undergo Tommy John surgery in July, knowing how long it has taken other recent Nats pitchers who've undergone Tommy John surgeries to come back, and knowing that the Nats usually are conservative with pitchers and coming off Tommy John surgeries. If he undergoes the TJ surgery now, he probably is out for most, if not all, of next season. Like, it may not be until 2026 that we see Josiah Gray.
Correct. You hope that's not, that would be worst case scenario. You hope at least that he could be back sometime in the second half of next season. But we do know they take things carefully. They don't rush to get somebody back just for the sake of it. Now, one other thing to keep in mind here, and again, I don't know, but I see updates about other pitchers from other teams who go to this guy and to other doctors. And more you're hearing about not just Tommy John surgery, but the internal brace procedure. This is what Sean Doolittle had a couple of years ago. It is, in some cases, used as a less invasive way to fix the elbow and get you back sooner. That could be like a 6-month recovery. In theory, allow him to come back next year. Now, you only do that if the tear is not full. It's kind of an in-between procedure that strengthens the elbow and gives you an opportunity to keep pitching sooner without totally reconstructing it. Now, I've also seen stories recently about guys who had both the Tommy John and the internal brace at the same time, almost as like a fail-safe to make sure everything is good and tight in there. And so that leads to a very long rehab, of course. So we don't know what it's going to be, but I think on the spectrum of what could happen here, worst case, obviously, Tommy John. Not great, but maybe better would be just the internal brace, which maybe knocks him out for the rest of this year, but not so much in 25. And then best case scenario, he looks at him, says, I think you're going to be all right. Go back out, start your rehab up again. Maybe we do see him before the end of the year.
Well, the Nats have their All-Star break. In terms of the post-All-Star break portion of the season, it'll begin with a 6-game homestand, 3-game series against the Cincinnati Reds this coming weekend, July 19th through the 21st, and then a 3-game series against the San Diego Padres, July 23rd through the 25th. The Nats get an off day on Monday, July 22nd. So they had so few off days in recent weeks. Then they get an off day immediately after the first series after the All-Star break. Go figure. One of the things I was going to ask you on this installment of the podcast prior to the game on Sunday was, Jake Irvin's been the team's best starting pitcher this season. He's pitching on Sunday to go into the break. Might it be that we see him pitch the first game after the break? With him having struggled in recent starts, I would think that that's probably not going to happen, or do you think that that could happen?
No, I would think the same. And this is the challenge. With so many young guys, you often want to use the break as a way to give them extra rest and hold a guy back and to make, the third or the fourth or the fifth start out of the break. But they're in a position where most of these guys could probably use that. Wouldn't shock me if Patrick Corbin starts the first game out, just because he's the one guy they're not concerned at all about his workload. And so if him starting game one would give everyone else some extra time to rest up, I could see them doing that. It would not be a reflection in any way of who they believe their number one starter is coming out of the break. It's more about, load management, I guess you want to call it that. But between Irvin, Gore, Parker, they'll probably start with a 4-man rotation because of that off day. They won't need to have a fifth starter, whether it's DJ Hurst, Jackson Rutledge, somebody else. But this is going to be a challenge for them because a lot of years you might have one guy or two guys that you want to give extra rest to. In this case, you have 3 really of the 4 current starting pitchers. And for that reason, don't get too upset if Patrick Corbin is starting Friday night against the Reds.
You can hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can email the podcast, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We have a website that you can check out, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. So that's going to do it for now. For Mark Zuckerman and myself, we thank you for listening. We hope you have a great All-Star break. But we're going to send you now to Tim Shovers, who is going to break down what went down for the Nats via their number 10 overall pick in the 2024 MLB Draft, which got going on Sunday night.
With the 10th pick of the 2024 MLB Draft, the Washington Nationals select Seaver King, a shortstop from Wake Forest.
So drafted as a shortstop, this is the same guy that had a 47-game hitting streak from 2022 to 23, third longest hitting streak in D2 history.
The Nationals made 3 picks on Sunday night as MLB held the first 2 rounds of the draft, all position players taken. At number 10 overall, the Nats selected infielder Seaver King from Wake Forest. King is listed as a shortstop, but early indications are that he might play elsewhere in the infield.
I think, shortstop is where I feel the most comfortable, and it's where I played kind of my whole life. But I think the part of my game is I can play anywhere, and, my ultimate goal is winning.
King went to high school in Athens, Georgia, and is friends with Brady House. They overlapped as star high school players in the state. King began his college career at Wingate College before transferring to the Demon Deacons. He hit .308 last season with 16 homers. At number 39 overall, a pick the Nats acquired over the weekend in the Hunter Harvey trade with the Royals, Washington took a catcher from the West Coast.
With the 39th pick of the 2024 MLB Draft, the Washington Nationals select Caleb Lomavita, a catcher from UC Berkeley. The Oakland Athletics are on the clock.
Yeah, probably for me the most athletic catcher in this year's draft. I mean, it's a plus run guy for a catcher. He's got good receiving skills, certainly continue to need to be developed. He's got a plus arm. Power is to the pull side, but the power is real. So you're getting a plus power, plus arm guy who does not walk at all. So if you want to think of like Wilson Contreras at the big league level a little bit, I think this is going to be that kind of player. I really do believe there's high upside in this, and there's just not a lot of catchers out there that have this young man's athleticism.
Given Keibert Ruiz's struggles, a noteworthy move, and finally, just a few picks later at number 44, the Nats picked a high school shortstop.
Luke Dickerson's a very, very physical infielder, probably moves to a corner position. He has massive power potential for a high school kid.
And a hockey player, too. He's a multi-sport guy, but he's a hockey player. He was getting some first-round buzz.
Audio there courtesy of MLB Network. Enjoy the All-Star break, everyone.
Drives this opposite field. It's looping towards the corner. Hits the foul pole. You can touch them all for Seaver King. Wake opens the scoring.
I'm Xavier Worthy, wide receiver, 4th NFL. Speeding. It's a rush on the field, in the zone, where it matters. As an athlete, I push my limits to win. But when I get behind the wheel, I know the importance of slowing down for safety. Because speeding is illegal. It endangers you, your loved ones, and everyone else on the road. Did you know speeding accounts for more than 1/4 of all traffic-related fatalities nationwide? Just like we need to focus to score touchdowns and win games, we need to be in the zone to stay safe on the road. Speed limits are in place to protect everyone, no matter what the speed limit is. Anything over is not only illegal, but dangerous. Like athletes, drivers must stay alert and present because there is no reward for speeding. Nothing is safe about it. Driving over the speed limit might seem like the quicker option, but speeding catches up with you. Stay focused. In a split second, everything can change. Paid for by NHTSA.